Hello, everybody. Happy first Thursday of September. Back to school season in the U.S. So hopefully if you are here, your kids are out of the house for the first time in over a year. You're having a good time.
I have the house to myself. It's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Me and the dogs.
I've loved being on meetings this week and people being like, it's my kid's first day back to school. It's so quiet. And I'm like, ooh, that must be nice. I have no kids, so I just have the dog, and he's equally annoying all the time. Cool. Well, welcome to this month's .NET MAUI Community Stand-Up, formerly known as the Xamarin Community Stand-Up. I am Maddy, one of your hosts. I'm a PM, program manager on the Xamarin/.NET MAUI team, and I'm here with my favorite co-host, Dave.
Hello. David Ortinau, also program manager working on .NET MAUI, .NET, and Xamarin. So we'll talk about some Xamarin things today. But the guest of honor is Rachel. Kang. You don't pronounce it Rachel? No, that's not how you do it.
So fancy.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel, software engineer at Xamarin Forms and .NET MAUI. If you don't know me already, super excited to be here.
And you joined the team like just over a year ago, right?
Yeah, it's been exactly a year and then some.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine this team before you. I don't know why. It feels like you've been here for a while. I guess a year is kind of a while, but let me
and
drop
all virtual. You have to point out that it's been, other than I know that you've been into the office and you have found a desk that was available. But I mean, you've done this all the year, primarily virtually. That has to be super weird, straight out of school.
It's crazy to think about. It does not feel like a year at all.
Yeah, we still have yet to meet in person.
I'm going to be Rachel, so whatever. It's more than I expected. I've noticed like everybody is either taller or shorter than I expected. Nobody is the height I expected them to be when I met them. So that's some 2021 vibes right there. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we have a amazing packed show today. We're going to flip the order. Rachel's actually going to do her segment, her guest appearance first. I'm going to drop the URL list in the chat. Bam. It's going to all the places. It's going to Facebook, Periscope, and like I say every month, like I don't even know where the Periscope is, and 2 different YouTubes and the Visual Studio Twitch. So we're in all the chats. Come hang out and tweet about it and whatever. We'll be going on for about an hour. And the first part of which we will dedicate to Rachel talking about accessibility. And then we'll do your wraparound blogs and PRs. So if you have any blogs and PRs this month that you really want to get highlighted, now is the time to Twitter DM them, because we will check them out. Maybe. So Rachel, take it away. Let me know when you want me to put your screen up.
Yeah, of course. Feel free to share whenever.
Sweet.
Yay! So today I'm super excited to talk about accessibility and accessibility in .NET MAUI. If you don't know already, a huge focus of mine on the .NET MAUI team is with accessibility. So it's something I'm really passionate about. And I guess before I really get into how it pertains to .NET MAUI, I just wanted to do a quick rehash of why we care so much about accessibility. So, over 1 billion people currently experience some form of disability in today's world. And these disabilities are extremely wide-ranging. There's something called the persona spectrum, which is a tool Microsoft has that helps us to understand this better. So there are permanent, temporary, and situational disabilities that range across different types of abilities, like the ability to touch, see, help, and speak, hear and speak. And although there are all these different types of disabilities, there are solutions we can create that benefit people of multiple types. So for example, for the ability to see, you might see how a voice assistant can be helpful for someone who is blind as well as someone who is a distracted driver. But designing for accessibility is not limited to people experiencing disabilities. The best solutions benefit everyone. So for example, closed captioning on videos, the raise hand feature on Microsoft Teams, dark mode on device, and even the physical world, like dropped curbs on sidewalks and driveways. These are all examples of things that were initially designed with accessibility in mind, but are things that I'm sure all of us have benefited from on the day-to-day, regardless of how we identify in terms of disability. And beyond this, there's also a huge business opportunity worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And of course, when there are more than 1 billion people affected by disability, that makes a ton of sense. Not to mention the growing number of legal consequences that businesses have been facing with regard to accessibility. And when it comes to approaching accessible apps, there are tons of standards and guidelines, most prominently the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that we use as our global standard and legal benchmark for developing accessible apps. And it's extremely detailed. You can check out this link here to read more in depth on the different ways you can build your apps more accessibly. But basically, they say they detail different ways in which your app can be more perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust so that overall they are more accessible. But at the end of the day, all accessibility standards, guidelines aside, empathy is truly the name of the game. The reason why we do this is because we want to make sure that the apps we create are accessible to all of our customers and all of our apps users. And so in order to build that empathy, it's important that we explore various accessibility settings and features, for example, screen readers, which I'll go more into later, and research accessibility models and APIs, and test and leverage available tools and resources. And on the .NET MAUI team, these are all things that we have been working on, especially hard. And we're super excited to share that we've been working so hard, our team, on accessibility. And you can check out the .NET MAUI repo to see the various PRs that we've been pumping out this past year. And with .NET MAUI, you'll be able to create accessible apps more seamlessly than ever before. So I want to do a little demo and show you our MAUI templates currently as they are and how they are accessible. Alrighty.
Sweet. There we go. Cool. So wait, before you jump in, what's your setup here? You got VS, you got something on the right here?
Yeah. All right. So here on the left, I have Visual Studio opened up with a .NET MAUI template solution. So if you go and you just create a new MAUI app today, this is what you'll see. On the right, I'm running this code, running this template app on a physical Android device I have here, but it's reflected on the screen. And I'm using a physical device, even though I can use an emulator, because when it comes to accessibility, it's really important that we test on physical devices since our users will be using a physical device at the end of the day. And with things like screen readers, it's a lot easier to test from a physical device than it is on an emulator. All right, so we have here Hello World label, welcome to .NET Multi-Platform App UI label, current count label, which counts the number of times that you click on this button. So if I click here, click me, you can see that the count is going up. And we have an image of a .NET bot. And you can see all of this is reflected here in the XAML as well. So this is something that if you've started playing around with MAUI, you might be already familiar with. But if you're not as familiar with the accessibility side of things, it's super cool because we have these new semantic properties that allow us to add additional information in order to make the app so much more accessible. So for example, I'm going to just turn on the screen reader. On Android, that screen reader is going to be talkback. And you'll be able to hear what the screen reader reads out loud when I tap on different controls. So I'm going to turn on the talkback.
Talkback on.
All right. So if I tap on Welcome to .NET Multi-Platform App UI.
Welcome to .NET Multi-Platform App UI, heading My Demo.
It reads that out loud for us, and it tells us it's a heading because we indicated here in the XAML that it should be a heading, right, with the semantic properties, that heading level. And heading is a property that screen reader users can use to skim content more easily. So if there's a ton of text, if we indicate certain controls as headings, then they can skim through the text more easily, kind of like a table of contents. So similarly with the current count label, if I tap on it.
Current count, 2.
It'll read that out for us. If I tap on the click me button.
Click me button counts the number of times you click.
It reads click me.
Double tap to activate.
Because we indicated here for the button that we should have a semantic property .hint that reads counts the number of times you click, that additional information is read aloud, which is super helpful. And if you notice, it also said double tap to activate, and that's because it's a button. And Android knows that if a control is a button, it should provide that additional info as well. And super cool here with the image. Normally, if you don't indicate any additional information with accessibility in mind, it won't read out anything to you. So to screen reader users, especially those who are visually impaired or can't see the screen, they would have no way of knowing that the .NET bot is on the screen at all. But if I tap on the screen here now,
Cute .NET bot waving hi to you.
we can hear that semantic property description, cute.NET bot waving hi to you, read aloud because we've indicated that in the code. So that's super cool. Beyond this, we also have in our code behind here, C#. We have here a semantic screen reader .announce method. And what we're saying is when we click on the button, we wanted to announce the current count. So when I click on this button, the screen reader should read this label out loud as it's updated. So I'm going to do that right now and you'll be able to hear it.
Click me button counts the number of times you click.
So that tells me what the button
Double tap
is.
to activate.
And then when I double tap to activate it,
Current count, 3.
we can hear that count being read aloud and updated for us. And it'll keep doing that over and over. So these are just some of the super cool semantic stuff that we have in .NET MAUI and that you can check out right in a new MAUI app through our templates. But there are so many other properties and new accessibility things that we've been introducing and that we're still working on in .NET MAUI. So highly recommend you check them out.
I have questions.
Same, and there are questions in the chat. I'm excited.
There are questions in the chat too, but I get to ask mine first because I have a microphone. Can you go back to the XAML file for me and to that heading level thing?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I wasn't listening closely enough. That happens. But is the value of the heading level, is this an enum, or what are the values that are accepted here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if I remember correctly,
I thought it was an excellent.
All right. So if I remember correctly, we have levels 1 through 9 or something like that, and there's also none. But basically, this is because it's interpreted differently on the native platforms, and we wanted to make sure that we take all of those considerations into account. So on UWP natively, there are 9 different heading levels. And so we wanted to make sure that we consider that in .NET MAUI. But in Android and iOS, it's just a Boolean. It's just, is it a heading or is it not? So what we did is you can indicate level 1 through 9 or none. And if you indicate a level, any level, the way it's interpreted on mobile is that we just understand, okay, you want this to be a heading.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That was a good question. And a good answer, too. Huh.
Please let me know in the chat if you feel like that was a good question, an excellent question.
Excellent. Yeah. All right, let's scroll back up. All right, the first one we've got from one of our Facebook viewers. I can't tell if that's an L or an I, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce that wrong. Is semantic description different to the automation properties name and help text?
That is a great question. It's similar in a lot of ways, but it's also different in that it's better for various reasons. The main thing I'd say is with Android, there was an automation ID, and a lot of developers had trouble testing things for accessibility, especially on Android, because automation ID was used for testing, but it was also kind of used, the help text and automation properties on name was also used for accessibility, and things were really confusing because they didn't serve just one purpose, but multiple purposes. So we made sure that that's made more clear in .NET MAUI, things like that. Those confusions no longer exist, and it's not an issue. And in .NET MAUI with semantic properties, .name, .hint, it's much more clear in that we map down to the native APIs one-to-one, and we try to interfere less with what the native platforms would normally do.
Sweet. Love that. Love not getting in the native platforms' ways.
Yes.
This is a question which I actually do not even know what the answer for this would be, but it's a question from Juan, and it says, it's from one of the YouTubes. Tab stop was removed, and does this have anything to do with accessibility?
Yes, it 100% has everything to do with accessibility. We talked a lot with our customers who have used Tabindex in the past, and we've talked a lot with accessibility experts at Microsoft for different platforms, and we've consulted many different accessibility guidelines as well. And we found that Tabindex, although it's a property that exists on some platforms, is actually an API that is not only often misused, but is often advised not to be used. And in many ways, in Xamarin Forms, by having Tabindex as an API that was available, it actually broke a lot of things and interfered with things as they pertain to accessibility. And so by getting rid of it, we are ensuring that .NET MAUI will be a lot more accessible. And also, we do acknowledge that there are certain edge cases, although rare, where Tabindex was helpful, but we'll be sure to introduce new APIs. For example, there's something called Semantic Order View in the Xamarin Community Toolkit you can check out that addresses those unique cases.
Cool. That sounds fun. I saw a question in YouTube that Dave answered, but I just want to call it out because it's a good question. What about scalability of font size based on slider support?
Scalability,
right?
Yes, that's a great question. Actually, I might be able to show you right now. So,
that's what I was hoping. Yeah.
Yeah. So font size, basically, we made changes in .NET MAUI to make it more accessible by making the font size more dynamic. So it was dynamic in Xamarin Forms, except it wasn't on iOS because natively iOS, it just normally isn't accessible. So I can show you right now, and I don't have an iOS device hooked up right now, but the same thing now applies to iOS. And so if I go into my settings here, and I go into accessibility, font size, you can change the font size here.
Cool.
But the thing is, these device settings aren't automatically reflected in apps. It's something that developers normally need to be extra conscious of. But in .NET MAUI, we handle that for you. So if I return to the app, you can see everything is bigger now.
But these aren't even named sizes. These are just, we just scroll it, we scale it for you.
Yeah, it's not just with name sizes. You can do it with any font size here. You can see we have sizes. Yeah.
That's pretty fancy. Look at all those accessibility demo apps you have on there. That's hilarious.
So many. Yeah.
For those of you who are curious, by the way, Rachel is using one of our fave demo products here, Visor, VYSOR, to screen mirror her Android onto her device. So we use Visor a lot, and we use Reflector a lot in this gang here. Reflector gang.
Gang.
So, definitely.
One more point on the scaling thing. Sorry, Maddy.
Yeah.
If you don't want a label or anything with text to auto scale, how do I disable that?
Yes. So I don't remember off the top of my head the exact name of the property, but we also made sure that if you don't want it to auto scale, even though it's best for accessibility, if there are cases that you don't want it to auto scale, there is a property you can add to say is auto scale enabled equals false or something like that.
Yeah, it's a long one. So hopefully IntelliSense helps you locate it, but it's there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's something like is auto scaling enabled equals false. It would be something like that.
Where's your IntelliSense at? It's sleeping.
I know.
Your poor computer.
It's okay.
Rachel has been bitten by the demo gods this past couple weeks because she's been doing virtual demos of this stuff, but every time she has Teams and Visual Studio open, things just like completely fall apart. So I'm sure a lot of you can relate in the chat. Cool. So Rachel, this is kind of a more general accessibility question from Alfred. So I can see, and this totally covers your face, so I'll get rid of it in a second. Sorry. I can see the device talking back to you being useful for visually impaired users, but that same user would probably have a hard time tapping that button. So what strategies do visually impaired users use to interact with apps? They might not be able to like actually touch it accurately.
That's a really good question. Yeah, that's a tricky question. I'm admittedly not familiar with all the different assistive technologies that are out there. But when it comes to screen readers, I think from what I've seen at least, many visually impaired users are used to the screen reader experience. So even though they don't have to tap directly on the thing, they can just tap on the screen and swipe, and the focus will determine what the actual tap target is. A lot of users who have motor impairments also tend to use keyboards. So even with a mobile device, they might attach a physical keyboard and they'll use the tab keys and arrow keys, for example, to navigate the screen. So those are just some other alternatives. There are also, depending on what type of disabilities might make screen readers or other assistive technologies difficult for you. There are also other assistive technologies like eye gaze and just fine motor movements that can help different users control their device in different ways. It's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize you could just like swipe to change the focus, because obviously like on a keyboard, you just hit tab or arrow key or whatever, but that makes sense. Huh.
Yeah, so I was just tapping here for convenience. Hold on, let me go back into settings and change the font size back to normal first. So if I go back to accessibility, I'm going to go to font size. I want to make it default size again. There. All right, so I'm going to turn on talkback and I can show you the swiping.
Stop back on. Hello, world, heading, MAUI demo.
So if I take my finger and I swipe on the screen.
Cute.net bot waving hi to you.
Sorry, I accidentally tapped on that. Let me start from the top.
World, heading.
So if I swipe.
Welcome to .NET multi-platform. Heading.
If I swipe again.
Current count, 3.
I swipe again.
Click me button counts the number of times you click.
And if I tap on the screen.
Current count, 4.
Even though I didn't tap on the button, it was picked up.
Characters, click me. Stop back off.
Cool. That's awesome. Oh my goodness. And that's just built into Android TalkBack?
Yep. Yeah, most screen readers, also iOS, VoiceOver similarly does the same thing.
A question from Juan in the chat. For developers that are not used to testing accessibility, are there any tools or analyzers that you know of that could help them improve their apps, get started, all that stuff?
Yes, that's a great question. There are a ton of different tools out there. The one we like to use a lot at Microsoft and on our team is Accessibility Insights. And that currently is supported on Windows and Android. So we like to use that tool, and you can check it out. I highly recommend checking out Accessibility Insights.
Let me see if I can pull up the link for it.
Yeah, it's a great tool. And they, if there are certain things you didn't quite catch, they'll scan the app for you and pick up color contrast issues and such to inform you that that's something you can work on. So yeah, but at the end of the day, in addition to any automated testing and tools that are out there, it's super important to manually test your app. And a lot of businesses and companies will usually outsource their app to a third party that focuses specifically on testing for accessibility.
Sweet. I know we do that at Microsoft with Visual Studio.
Yeah.
With Visual Studio 2022 coming up, we have had we have an internal accessibility team too, but we have a bunch of people who literally just email us and are like, talk me through every way I could possibly use your feature. And they go and they do it. And then they email us and they're like, this doesn't work the way it should. And I'm like, oh, so it's fun because we get to fix a lot of bugs, but also it's great because, we, as diverse of a team as we like to have and hire, you can't necessarily cover every disability or handicap or anything with one engineering team. So it's really good to get as many people who are educated in this topic on it as possible.
Definitely. And we're doing the same thing right now on our team too, .NET MAUI. We're creating an app that is more complicated in .NET MAUI, and we're going to make sure we get it validated for accessibility by external accessibility experts as well.
Sweet. Cool. All right. Well, I will keep my eye on questions. I know you have other important things to go do, like build .NET MAUI and all that stuff. So we'll let you go. And we'll flip over to the other part of this. But yeah, Rachel's, I'll send the links one more time. All of the blog posts she wrote on the Xamarin blog, her Twitter, and the link to her presentation here is all in the URL list. So check it out and be nice on the internet and all those fun things. And Rachel, thanks so much for joining.
All right, thanks so much for having me. I'll see you on Twitter and Discord, GitHub, all the fun stuff.
Yeah. All righty.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay.
Bye.
Now let me share my let me share my screen, make sure this works. Oh boy. Share screen. Screen 3. Nice. Add to stream. Nice. So, side note, for those of you who like to listen to me talk about our streaming technology, because I know I do this every month, James Montemagno, the one, the only, he has now set up a whole new way for us to do Streamyard. So we all have like our own admin accounts instead of just like sharing one thing. And it is really nice, except I had to log into everything and none of my like settings persisted over the different accounts. And it was very confusing for me this morning. So I had to start like figuring this out an hour before, when usually Dave and I like 3 minutes before are like, all right, get in the Streamyard, call the guest, call it a day. Yeah. All right. Let's open some blogs. There were not a ton this month. And I looked at the same places that I look usually. So I think everybody is just on vacation. I'm emotionally on vacation, although not physically on vacation. So it's okay. There were a bunch of videos this month, though. I did notice that YouTube was really up there. And as I've said before on this, as much as I love to just like host a viewing party, I feel like it's kind of a waste of everybody's time for me to live stream myself watching a video on YouTube. So, yeah, you can find those Planet Xamarin, the Xamarin like weekly news recap app that some of our lovely team members have made, all those things. Feel free to go find those YouTubes, or, you know, the .NET YouTube, the Xamarin YouTube, all those things. First and foremost, I just learned today that Dave is a regular attendee of the Xamarin/.NET MAUI podcast, because I saw this and I was like, oh, Dave was a guest. And Dave was like, I do this all the time. And I was like,
I'm a perpetual guest. I'm a recurring character on the cast.
Yeah. You're like the producer in a really good podcast who like just chimes in sometimes with something really valuable, and then you don't hear from them again.
Just that random person off screen that they always refer to. Yeah. Yeah.
So you still, of course, have the wonderful James Montemagno and Matt Socope. Sorry, Matt. I ask you like once a week and I still screw it up. But now you have your host, Dave. And it is the .NET MAUI podcast. So it's got this nice new little graphic. But this is just the Xamarin podcast revamped. So it's the same old. This is episode 97. So it's not like we lost all the history. Yeah.
Still talk about lots of Xamarin stuff, plenty of cloud, Azure stuff as it relates. So
it's a fun gang. And then you guys have guests on usually, right? Like every once in a while.
They will, occasionally have guests.
Yeah.
I stick around for the Maui segment and then usually bail because I have meetings, lots of meetings. So, but occasionally I'll stick through the whole things. But yes, they have much more interesting people than myself that they bring on regularly. You're
interesting to me. Don't worry.
And actually, if I could highlight one thing about the podcast, if you go back, not you, but if anybody who listens to the podcast goes back just a little bit, you'll find some great interviews with customers using Xamarin and .NET. Blackbaud and Sketch 360 and all those. American Airlines, I think, is on there. And you can hear interviews both with our customer advisory team, Alex Blount and Sweeky and others. But you can also hear directly from the engineering teams that worked on those products at those companies. So highly recommend giving those a listen.
Sweet. Yeah. So .NETMAUIPodcast.com has the whole thing. And look at all these places you can listen to it. So fancy. Spotify. For a second, I didn't see Spotify and I was like, guess I can't, but it's there. You might have seen in that list of previous episodes the Xamarin Community Toolkit Extravaganza from earlier this year. If you didn't hear, last month we showed Brandon's blog, The Future of the Xamarin Community Toolkit, which is basically, moving the Xamarin Community Toolkit into kind of this general community toolkit, upgrading it for Maui, making friends and sharing with WinUI and the toolkits that they have, and making it all one easy peasy, easy breezy, beautiful community toolkit. So we have announced and released .NET MAUI compatible versions of the existing Xamarin Community Toolkit. So if you're not ready to bump up to the new toolkit yet, and you want to just kind of throw a compat library in there for now, you are welcome to go ahead and use this. Gotta love Brandon's blogs. He's always got emojis in here. He's got great blog posts. So Dave is spamming the chat. You okay there, bud? He just typed on one of the YouTubes, we, and then LOL in 3 separate messages. So
apparently I don't know how to use my keyboard. It just kept returning preemptively. So
one of our friends got timed out in our fantasy football Slack because his cat somehow set up Slack to send a recurring message hundreds of times. We have no idea what happened, but we fixed it. Oh, Sweeky's here. Hi, Sweeky. She said, you mean ew. I agree. Yeah, release schedule details are on here. So if you're using the Xamarin Community Toolkit right now, I would check it out. But yeah, the Maui toolkit's going to be great. And yeah, sweet. All right, into the community side of the house. Oh my goodness. So many pop-ups. You know how I am with pop-ups on your sites. I want to read your blogs, but I don't want pop-ups. Okay, skeleton loader. I thought this was a really cool blog because I opened Snapchat this morning and they don't have a good skeleton loader on the Android app. I don't know if they do on iOS, but they just show you that you have an unread Snapchat and they won't let you click on it. And that was making me so angry. I was like, if you cannot buffer in the fact that my snap isn't ready to be viewed yet, don't show me that I have it, because now I just keep trying to tap it. And that is where something like a skeleton loader comes in. So you can, show this thing that's there is content here. We're just not ready for you to start interacting with it yet. And we will be shortly. Don't you worry. And this is the UI paradigm that Snapchat should use. I actually, I think I was talking to Rachel yesterday. We were talking about the original Snapchat app, which was so ugly, but it was almost 10 years ago. Anyway, so I saw this blog and I got excited because I was like, this is the kind of UX content that this world needs. And it's actually not that long of a blog post. It's based on a box view. So I was like, cool. I'm sure there are other views you could do with that, but there's color and gradient animations. So, that's what does this little swipe across. I wonder, is there a video in here? I can't remember. Yeah. So nice. So it looks like it's loading. And then your little items pop up. And it's all just in your XAML and your Xamarin Forms code. So pretty easy.
Yeah, it is nice. I've taken that approach myself in the past. And then there's also a couple of libraries out there. I think there might even be something in the community toolkit that also does this. But sometimes you do want to have more specific control of things, and knowing the basics of how to make it happen is really good. So
yeah. I feel like they have something in the community toolkit that's like this, but I had no idea how it worked. So this, at least, I'm like, I could do that, right?
Yeah, I think it's called state layout in the community toolkit, but
interesting. Could I link that blog? I can actually do you one better and link you all the blogs. Whew, they're going in. So generally our blog format for the link, it's always the urls.com, and then used to be Xamarin-standup-the month, and now it's Maui-standup-the month. First 3 or 4 letters and then the year. So I had to stop doing 19 because I went to 20, and then I was like, this could be 20 anything. Ooh, kind of scary. Oof. This one, gotta love it. I'm all about migrating and updating these days. I don't know if you've heard about this thing called .NET MAUI that's coming out, but I'm working on the upgrading and migration experience, as is everyone on this team, and Sweeky, who's in the chat. So I love blogs about this kind of stuff, but this one is like, really taking an old school Xamarin native, not even a Forms project, using MVVM cross, and moving it onto kind of the latest and greatest bits, including Android X, which I know there's like a button, like a checkbox that'll just kind of like do most of it for you, but it's good to understand what's happening. This even goes into like PCL instead of .NET Standard, and a whole bunch of breakdowns of like if you have an old Xamarin project lying around that you haven't touched in a while and you're ready to kind of revamp it. This is a really good blog to read through, and it just kind of shows you all the different places, like these little namespace changes and random things get changed as things have been updated. So yeah, and then of course the Android X stuff. Bloop, bloop, bloop. And there's a guide on the MVVM Cross website, of course. So feel free to like go through this. I just found this like an interesting read. I don't have any apps that I haven't updated because I usually just like am always updating them, and they're always kind of like new. But I know Dave has been digging back into the archives lately with trying to get everything onto Forms. So
yeah, it's sometimes it's pretty interesting to pull something that's really old, like a 2 dot something, Xamarin Forms 2 dot, and see what it takes to get that to Maui, or at least to 5. And because customers are going to do that, and I want to make sure I know what that experience is going to be also. MVVM Cross, or MVX as we liked to call it on my teams, was great, has been around a long time. And we did some really nice things with it, both with and without Xamarin Forms. We did Xamarin Native and then Xamarin Forms. It's also a really good option when you're doing like a mix of WPF and Xamarin mobile stuff. So
cool. Love it. All right. Last blog. And Dave, I don't know if you sent me links and I just didn't see them.
I didn't send you links, but I have them all open here, and I'll add them to the thing later.
All right. We'll add. So Dave will go through his PRs and I'll add them as we go. But this one's a custom control one from Trailhead Technology Partners. So Rodrigo wrote this blog. I don't think I've actually heard of this like company before. So I was excited because I always love when new faces show up in our blog stream because, we have a lot of the usual suspects who are great. But it's good to know that new people are writing blogs about this stuff too. And this was kind of just like a basic like crash course on custom controls. And I'm sure most of the folks in this chat who are like experienced, seasoned Xamarin Forms developers know what a custom control is and know how to kind of get their way started with it. But I remember custom controls being one of the things when I started that I was like, what do you mean? Like, I can't just add a border, or before there were rounded corners. I can't just round the corner. No, you have to make a custom control. And I was like, I don't know what that is. That seems like way too much for me. I'm going to go back to tooling and hide in the closet because I can't deal with that. But this blog, actually a very nice, approachable, way to kind of understand what a custom control is. This one's using XAML. This one isn't like a custom render or anything. So it's kind of nice because I think the other thing I got caught up with is I went to go do custom controls and everything I saw was custom renderers. And then I was like, this is like way beyond my scope. So, so if you have, new people on your team, I always love sharing these kind of like intro blog posts, or if you're here and you're newer to Xamarin and .NET MAUI, check this one out. And of course, this is just XAML. So this will mostly map right over to .NET MAUI. It's MVVM. We know how it works. It's good. So cool. That's my blogs. So I will stop my screen. Boop. And Dave, are you ready for me to put yours up?
Go ahead. Yep.
And there's Dave. Oh, to-do entry.
Well, you mentioned that last blog about custom controls, so I thought it would be interesting to share this little project. You can see it's 10 months old, and all I'm doing is taking the To-Do app, which is the To-Do app from Microsoft. Cool app, both on mobile and on desktop. I'm not going to show you my To-Do app right now because it's full of things I haven't done, but they're all to do. But there's a really nice kind of user experience here in terms of the edit field is also the entry field, and it's it's where you also star things for favorites. You mark it done. So for light and dark mode, as well as these different looks, I built a custom control for this. So if you want to go check this out, I think it's cool. I wanted to share it because I didn't actually ever tell anybody I did this. And I never did publish a YouTube video, although I think I recorded it. So the raw video is probably somewhere around here. But my YouTube has been a little dormant since like, I don't know, February. So anyway, there's that. The other thing I was going to call out from calling back to Rachel's when we were talking about the scaling of fonts, this is the PR for that. So the actual property is font auto scaling enabled, and you can see all the different places where it has been added. So if you don't want your font to auto scale for any particular reason, you can disable it like this. But by default, it is turned on, which is great because I know people my age who prefer to have larger fonts on their phone so that they can actually see things.
How old are you, Dave? Are you 28?
Right, plus or minus 20.
Oh, okay, yeah, that works.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with Rachel the other day. She's the newest and youngest on the team. I am the oldest on the team, although I haven't been here the longest. So. Just a funny juxtaposition. Let's see here. I wanted to give a quick update on .NET MAUI. So preview 7 went out a few weeks back, and I did see somebody commenting in the chat, had some trouble getting things set up and installed on Windows. We are highly aware that getting things set up and installed is still quite a chore. MAUI check helps a ton. And in the next preview, we will have pieces in the Visual Studio installer that should really just take care of everything. So it'll be more like your existing Xamarin experience, and you won't need to wrestle with a bunch of different things. But we have work to do there. We're smoothing it out. It hurts us as much as it can be a struggle for you. So hang in there. We're getting there. And it's all going to be better in the end. In terms of where we stand right now, Javier has diligently been keeping this status up to date. And this is in our wiki, where you can scroll down and you can see the pages, the views, particular controls, all the properties, and where are we with these things? Are they in progress? Are they completed? Or are they not yet started? So there are some of those as well. And you'll notice just by scrolling through here, most of it is green. So that's really good. But we certainly have other progress to be made before we are at a GA completed status. This is about 9 days old, as I just said, and there are quite a few things that have already been done. So this will get even more green once Javier gets back to it. And I'll call out a couple of those PRs here in just a second. Before I go into MAUI specific PRs, I thought that a quick update on performance would be interesting. So one of the key things we want to make sure that we are continuing to focus on is Android start performance in particular. Performance all up. Was it Stephen Tobe that did a State of the Union, I guess?
Yeah, an amazing blog post.
It was like hundreds of pages or something. I don't remember. It was enormous. He went for the shock and the awe, and he definitely got the awe. But about .NET all up in terms of performance and app sizes and things like that. And so we're really looking forward to bringing that same level of focus to bear on our mobile scenarios. It's not so much of a concern really on iOS or even desktop, but on Android is where we all would like to see some significant improvements. So the cool thing here, and what I wanted to highlight, is that Jonathan Peppers just updated this PR with the latest profiled AOT numbers. So if you looked at the profiled AOT numbers last month when we had this stand up, because I know that there were quite a few questions in the chat during the stand up about where are we with performance. The numbers were not looking good. I think profiled AOT might have been even either right there with the JIT or maybe even higher than the JIT. But you can see now that profiled AOT is now below AOT. And so AOT stands for ahead of time compilation. Profiled AOT is essentially a hybrid where you AOT the things that are most essential to your app startup, and then you can rely upon JIT for the rest of the execution of your application. And so this gives you the ideal balance between app size and app startup. And typically that app startup is the cold start, which means your app has not been launched yet, and this is the first time you're bringing your app into memory. So you can see that now we're below, so that's really, really nice. We also have a mode in Xamarin right now where you can record a custom profile for your application and then use that profile with profiled AOT. Typically, your application will be just fine with the profile that we provide out of the box. But if you really want to get nitty gritty with it and get down to the metal, you can do that. Now, that's something that you can also do in .NET 6 and MAUI, but you're going to need to take some additional steps for it. So we'll provide documentation and guidance for that, for those who really want to go deep on it. But there's your quick update. And you can see also like the JIT app size, that's 17 megabytes, and that's 23 megabytes, if I can do my math properly. So profiled AOT, not much larger than the JIT APK. And then I don't know what our AAP sizes are. I guess we probably should do that also. John Peppers, are you listening? Do we need some AAP? Is it AAP? It's AAP, isn't it? It's the new package thing from Google. Okay. So lots of activity on the MAUI repo. Highly recommend. The good reading is looking at the pull requests. That's my favorite tab to hit and go see what all is happening. Occasionally I'll go look at the issues, especially when I start filing them. But this is where you can see all the beautiful activity. So I wanted to call attention to a few. First and foremost, this just came in hot off the presses 12 hours ago. Rookie Java has landed the Tizen pull request. So you can see that, and we speak with them regularly and had a meeting not too long ago. You can see that they're doing some pretty cool stuff here. They now have a backend for .NET MAUI. So we will work on getting this reviewed and in. They not only have their own apps and things that they have, but hey, look at that. It's the weather app on a TV.
Nice.
Didn't really think I was going to see my weather app on a TV, but there it is. I might need to add some features to it, but that's pretty awesome. Let's see what else is in here. Oh, and then they also ported the controls sample. And big shout out of thanks from the Tizen team to the .NET MAUI folks. That would primarily be the engineers, not me. So wanted to make sure that that love was shared as well. So thank you, Samsung Tizen team. You guys and gals are all awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well, the
I
last
miss
time I had a
them.
meeting with them, they were all wearing MAUI shirts, by the way. Yeah,
They are my favorite. Oh, I'll never forget when we were at the Xamarin Developer Summit and they got us our cool stamps, or they were like little ink pad stamps. I have mine in my drawer somewhere. It was so cool.
Mine's on the table.
I was like, you all are the best. So sorry, everybody else. They're the best.
So this is coming very, very soon, and will probably be in the next preview, not the preview that is basically in the box. This is new stroke. So stroke is being added to, I think, most layouts, if I remember correctly. We're not adding it to every single control because not every control really needs a border. But layouts totally make sense. So you'll find a situation where you can wrap something in a layout and then give the border to it there. But you can see just how detailed Javier has gotten with this. I mean, being able to specify solid, dashed, rounded, it's bananas just how detailed he is here.
I'm sorry, one of those options, but
was it but? I said but. What? But?
There, but. What does that mean?
Butted?
Oh.
Is it the flat?
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Javier, explain yourself. Maddie's blushing.
I just saw it and I was like, did I make that up? No, I didn't. That's
call.
what it is.
You know, this is the sort of thing
Is your
I would
butt
normally
round or
call
square?
attention to.
That's what that read to me.
Yeah. This is why you and I get along so well.
Oh yeah.
This is a draft for a ZStack layout. Not committed to making this happen for GA release, but if you are interested in this and you want to come check it out and give your feedback, then please do. To be clear, this is not adding a Z-index property to things within this layout. It's more of just, whatever, first in is the bottom, last in is the top, and it's a ZStack. Simple as that. And when this first landed, I was like, why wouldn't you just use a grid? And of course, that's my simplistic view of the world, right? Like, why wouldn't you just use a grid? And those who actually know what a grid requires to do to make a simple ZStack, they're like, well, it's way overkill for just doing this. So you would get much better performance, or at least better performance. Much maybe, you got to measure it. But this is the way to go. So if you're interested, check out the ZStack layout. And then let's see, we just have a few minutes left. Wanted to call attention to the fact that XAML compilation is on by default. You don't need to put an assembly tag anywhere. You don't need to turn anything on. If there are views within your application that you wish to skip XAML C for, you can still decorate those views with that. But by default, all of our templates will remove all the overhead of seeing that in your code files. And just know that it's on by default. XAML C does not get run completely when you're debugging, but we do run the XAML check to make sure that your XAML is valid beforehand. We just don't run the full IL intermediate language generation at that point. Let's see here. Android SDK 31 is now required, so I will include this in the next previews, blog posts, and documentation to remind everybody. But you're going to need to go get Android SDK 31. And this also means JDK 11, which is going to require a couple of choices on your part, because once you turn on JDK 11 and you enable it in your IDE, you're going to break anything that requires JDK 8, which is the current default. So I'll explain the ins and the outs of that in the future. Just know that if you start opting into new Android things, you may be going on to rougher terrain for the near future. Yeah,
VS 2019 is going to be a little wonky with it, with JDK 11, because the Android designer doesn't support it, and the device manager doesn't really support it in Visual Studio 2019. So if you have 2022 preview, or if you have Android Studio, you can make your emulators there, and that will fix it. The Android designer is coming along. It was like weirdly complicated to get it to work on JDK 11. So what we're going to do is sneaky have a JDK 8 somewhere, like the smallest possible version of it, for just the Android designer to run off of until we're ready to actually rip JDK 8 out. So there's going to be a little bit of roughness, but like Dave said, but let us know if you try it and what issues you're running into. I've been using API 31 now for a little bit, so it's working eventually.
Yes. So we will get there. It'll all be good. I wanted to call out quick attention to Xamarin Forms and the planning for upcoming service releases. So if you want to know where we are on track with service releases, check the projects board, the boards here. You can see what is currently proposed. I can sign in because I haven't done that a couple times today. You can see what is being proposed to be fixed, what is in progress. We're focusing on making sure we get the PRs that are already available through first. And you can see that Javier has been on a tear over the past several hours on providing some fixes. And Gerald, who has recently returned to the fold, he's back on the team.
He's back.
He is kind of taking point on getting our service releases teed up and out the door. So if you want to lobby with anybody for things that you need, it would really be helpful for you in the Xamarin Forms space while we are doing so much work to bring everything to .NET MAUI. Let Gerald know. And one of the key things that he's tasked with is identifying what fixes in Xamarin Forms can be ported over to .NET MAUI so that we all get all the benefits, and it's an easy migration to MAUI, which is my last PR. This is a PR, isn't it? Yep. So Sweeky, this is a PR for the .NET Upgrade Assistant, bringing MAUI steps into it. So I've tested this. I know, Maddy, you've been testing this a bunch. It's getting better and better. And I know that really all of Sweeky's teammates as well are actively porting apps and providing feedback on, hey, this is working. Hey, I got this error. And then everybody and Taylor, Southwick, and others are like, okay, well, let's figure out what that error means. And it's coming together. What's your latest status on this particular project, Maddy? Because I think you've been using it more recently than I have.
Yeah, it works on my plants app, which albeit is pretty simple, but it works. And it's been fun. We're kind of like nailing down what is left to do after this tool runs. And there are some weird things with like it was built on .NET 5 and now it's .NET. So we're testing. So if you really want to get funky, there is a way you can grab this build. I would not recommend using it on an app that you actually care about. But if you want to try it out and see what it's going to look like, and I know we had Sweeky on last month and she kind of talked us through what these steps are. You absolutely can. So check it out. I think this is just mostly interesting to me because if you look at the code changes that are actually being made here, it's like really just in the project file and in namespaces. So this is another example I can point people to when they're like, I'm going to have to rewrite my whole app. And we're like, no, you're not. Most things are going to stay the same. But what's also nice is we found, what was I reading on Teams this morning or last night? Some Android something theme property doesn't translate over nicely from Xamarin Forms to MAUI. So
that was me.
Yeah, you're breaking stuff. So, but we can just eventually stick that in this tool and maybe it'll just fix it for you. So
yes.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I have updated all the links as we've gone along. I'll send it one last time because we're going to sign off and get back to we have sprint demos actually right now, which is very exciting.
Ooh,
so
check that out. Yeah, I'd love to be able to start demoing these things publicly because we have some really cool tooling stuff.
Yeah, and I think next month we're going to try and have Dimitri on to show us the latest and greatest with .NET Hot Reload. I tried to get him today and he was like, I want another week because it's going to get really good really quick. And we were like, fine, Dimitri. So all right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for joining. It's been another amazing Xamarin. So, oh my goodness, .NET MAUI community stand-up. I almost made it the whole time without saying Xamarin instead of MAUI. But we'll see you again on October 7th. That's the first Thursday in October. And I know that because it's the day before my wedding. And this is the last thing I'm doing before I'm taking off 3.5 weeks. So see you then. Bye.